The scent of burning sage and moonflower incense wove through the air, thick and clinging, suffocating as honey. My eyes stung, watering as I tried to stay upright among the crowd pressing against the ceremony hall's stone walls. Moonlight poured through the stained glass, scattering prisms across faces that could steal hearts with a glance, faces that didn't spare me a single look. I had no business being here. The annual mating ceremony wasn't meant for someone like me, a half-blood with no pack, no claim, no standing among the elite werewolf clans hunting for perfect matches. Yet I stood there pressed to the cold wall, dressed in borrowed silk, a favor to my childhood friend Kalis, who couldn't bear to attend alone. "Just blend in," she had whispered, squeezing my hand before melting into the sea of purebloods. "No one will even notice your hair." She had been right. No one ever noticed me. In a world where strength, dominance, and bloodline dictated worth, I was practically invisible. My mother's human blood had diluted the gifts that should have been mine. Enhanced senses, yes. But no shifting. No pack legacy. A genetic dead end in a society obsessed with producing heirs of raw power. My fingers clenched the small silver pendant around my neck, my grandmother, Marie's last gift before she passed. "Your heart sees what others cannot," she had said. "That's your true strength, Saris." The pendant was simple, a crescent moon cradling a tiny star. Nothing compared to the opulent jewels decorating the necks of potential mates around me, yet its weight against my skin grounded me. The ceremony dragged on. Elders moved through ancient rituals meant to heighten instincts, align souls, while I fought yawns one after another. Each minute added weight to my body. Sleepless nights helping Kalis prepare had caught up. I hadn't meant to close my eyes just for a moment. Just one moment, I told myself, leaning against a shadowed alcove, as the ceremonial drums pulsed like heartbeats. But when I opened my eyes again, the hall had vanished. I was in a chamber vast and breathtaking, a space that stole my very breath. Moonlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating walls lined with ancient tomes and weapons trophies of battles won and bloodlines defended. But it wasn't the walls I noticed. First, it was the heat. The all-consuming heat pressed against me. My cheek rested against a chest broad as a mountain, hard and steady, rising and falling with each breath. A massive arm circled my waist, holding me in place with casual, undeniable possession. I froze, terrified to move, to breathe, to make any sound. Not just any man either. My senses screamed the truth. My mind refused the sharp scent of winter pine and thunderstorms, the pulse of raw power that made the air shimmer, and the silver streak cutting through black hair, framing a face carved of stone. Tavern Holtgrave, the Alpha King, ruler of all 7 territories, the shifter, whose name made Alphas bow, whose presence demanded submission. And here I was, drooling on his chest. Panic clawed me, but before I could disentangle myself, his eyes snapped open, Arctic ice so pale they glowed in the moonlight, fixed entirely on me. "You're awake." His voice was midnight and gravel resonating through my bones. Not a question, an assertion. I scrambled backward, only to find myself pressed even closer, a large hand anchored across my lower back. I'm so sorry," I stammered, cheeks burning. "I don't know how someone must have." "Is this a mistake?" Danger flickered in his eyes. His head tilted, nostrils flaring as he inhaled my scent deliberately. "What's your name, Saris?" I whispered, unable to look away, every instinct screaming submission before an alpha of his caliber. He repeated it, savoring the syllables. Expression unreadable, carved of stone and judgment. "And you believe your presence here is a mistake?" The question was a trap in itself. It felt like a trap, or a dream from which I'd wake slumped in that alcove, the ceremony continuing without notice. "It has to be," I muttered, gathering a shred of courage. "I'm nobody. A half-blood who can't even shift." I wasn't meant to be chosen tonight, let alone. My words died in my throat. Something flickered in his expression. A flash of something crossed his face, curiosity, maybe even amusement there, and gone before I could be sure. The hand keeping me anchored shifted, and one finger brushed the silver pendant at my throat, tracing its curve with startling gentleness. "This is old magic," Tavrin murmured, his voice low enough to stir the air between us. "Where did you get it, my grandmother?" I managed, my throat tight. Before she passed, he studied the pendant like it carried a secret. "It's not nothing," he said quietly when I tried to dismiss it. His gaze lifted back to mine, sharp as moonlight. "Do you know what happened tonight, Ceres?" Before I could speak, the massive chamber doors slammed open. A man with the posture of a soldier and a face lined by scars strode in, halting at the sight before him. The urgency in his eyes shifted to shock, then to something like weary recognition. "My king," he said, bowing his head. "The council demands answers. The others are growing restless." Tavrin didn't look away from me. "Tell the council they'll have what they seek tomorrow. Tonight belongs to no one but me." The man hesitated. "And Lady Vera, she threatens to. She is no longer my concern." Tavrin cut him off. The air turned frigid. "Leave us, Orin." Orin dipped his head once before retreating, but not before casting me a look that mixed curiosity and warning. When the doors sealed behind him, silence filled the space like a living thing. I became painfully aware of every place our bodies touched the rhythm of his heartbeat, under my palm, the warmth radiating from his skin. "You still haven't answered," he said softly. "Do you know what truly happened tonight?" I shook my head, lost in confusion. "The mating ceremony isn't just tradition," he explained, his voice measured, deliberate, like he feared I might bolt. "It's bound by ancient magic. When an unmated alpha of royal blood joins the ritual, that power seeks their fated soul, the one perfectly matched." His eyes locked onto mine. "I've stood through 15 ceremonies and never felt the call. Until tonight." The words hit me like a blow. "No," I whispered. "That's impossible. I'm not." But he spoke over my denial. I felt it like a tether, wrapping around my soul. I followed it through the crowd until it led me to a golden-haired woman, fast asleep, against the wall, utterly oblivious, while the magic of the hall roared around her. "I don't understand," I said, though dread coiled in my gut. "The elders were scandalized," he went on, the corner of his mouth twitching. "A half-blood. No shift, no alliance worth noting. They called it a mistake." His tone wasn't scornful, just curious, almost gentle. "They begged me to ignore it, to choose a more suitable mate." My heart pounded so hard I thought it might give me away. "And what did you say?" That almost smile deepened, revealing a flash of a canine too sharp to be entirely human. "I told them the Alpha King doesn't make mistakes." My breath caught. "You carried me here." "I did," he said simply. "You didn't stir once. Though when I tried to set you down, you clung to me with surprising strength. Mortification flooded me. This can't be happening. There's been some cosmic mistake. I need to go back." "To what?" His voice softened, though the weight behind it was absolute. "To a half-life that never saw you for who you are." I flinched. "You don't even know me. I know enough." The words sank deep, echoing with something I wasn't ready to name. His hand drifted from the pendant at my throat to the curve of my cheek, his thumb brushing the corner of my mouth with a touch so light I almost doubted it was real. "I know you had the courage to walk into a hall where you expected rejection," Tavrin said softly. "You stood beside a friend when it offered you nothing in return. You wear a charm of old magic without even knowing its true worth." His gaze cut through me, sharp, relentless, as if seeing not what I showed, but what I hid. "And I know that when every instinct in you screams to bow, you don't." That his voice dropped lower is rarer than you think, Ceres. A sharp knock split the moment. Tavrin's expression darkened. Enter, he commanded, his arm still secured around my waist. A woman swept into the room, every movement deliberate and glacial. Her beauty was striking, too perfect, too sharp. Pale hair wound in intricate braids, her silver gown rippling like mercury beneath the moonlight. When her eyes found me, they narrowed with venom. "So it's true," she said, her tone melodic but dripping disdain. "Tavern Holtgrave, the great Alpha King protector of bloodlines, has chosen a half-breed who can't even hear the moon's call." I flinched, but Tavern's grip tightened. "Choose your next word carefully, Vera," he warned, his voice calm, but edged with danger. "You speak of my mate." The word hit like thunder. Mate. The sacred bond that went beyond reason or law, a connection sealed by the soul itself. And he'd just claimed it. With me. Vera's perfect face twisted with fury. "You mock everything our kind stands for. The council will never approve. The council answers to me," Tavern replied, his tone low, carrying the kind of power that made the air itself vibrate. "As do you." Her composure cracked, replaced by desperate defiance. "We've been allies for generations. Our union would have secured the eastern borders for centuries. Think of the strength our children could have carried. Politics doesn't concern me tonight." His gaze stayed locked on her, his body still angled protectively around mine. "Leave us, Vera." For a heartbeat, I thought she might attack. Her fingers curled, trembling with barely restrained rage. Then with visible effort, she smoothed her expression into cold grace. "You'll regret this," she whispered, "when you realize what you've thrown away for this." Her glare slid over me like a blade. "Some mistakes can't be undone, Tavern." She turned and left the heavy doors, sealing behind her with a sound that felt final. Silence pressed in, thick and dangerous. I exhaled shakily. "She's right," I said, my voice small but steady. "You just made an enemy over a misunderstanding. Whatever this connection is, it can't be real. You should go after her. Tell her this was some kind of mix-up." His eyes, those pale, haunting eyes, darkened until the blue was swallowed by black. "Do you feel it, Ceres?" he asked quietly. "The pull, the certainty." I wanted to deny it, to lie. But something in his voice, his stare, told me he'd know. "I feel something," I whispered. "But that doesn't make it right or sane, or anything but a disaster for you." His laugh caught me off guard, low and rough, wrapping around me like smoke. "Politics ruled my life for 2 centuries, he said. "Maybe it's time something else took its place." The casual mention of his age stole my breath. 2 centuries. I knew alphas lived longer, their power extending their years, but hearing it still sent a shiver down my spine. "You don't even know me," I protested weakly. "I have time to learn." He shifted, and suddenly I was no longer on his lap, but beside him on a vast, shadow-draped divan. His hand stayed at the small of my back, steady, unyielding, as the weight of what had just happened sank in like gravity itself. "We have time, Ceres, if you want it." And there it was, the choice I hadn't expected, to hold the power I never imagined could be mine. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, still trying to make sense of this moment, this impossible question. A spark of something, hope perhaps, flickered in Tavern's gaze. Now he said, "We begin." Sleep evaded me that night, no matter how desperately I sought it. My world had flipped. In hours turned upside down and inside out. An attendant led me to a suite adjoining Tavern's own, a gesture toward propriety he insisted upon, though his reluctance to leave me was palpable. The rooms dwarfed my tiny apartment entirely. Moonlight pooled across walls painted in shades of midnight and silver, a combination both regal and strangely soothing. "Rest," he said softly, his fingers brushing mine just long enough to make my pulse hitch. Tomorrow would bring challenges. Enough to flatten mountains, I thought, pacing the thick carpet as dawn seeped through the windows in soft gold. My borrowed ceremony dress lay discarded on a chair, replaced by silk pajamas arranged neatly on the bed, too fine, too soft against my skin, a reminder that I didn't belong among such luxury. A gentle knock startled me. A young woman stepped inside, moving with precise efficiency, placing a tray of breakfast near the balcony. "Good morning, my lady," she said, dipping into a quick curtsy that made me cringe inwardly. "His Majesty requested I bring your breakfast and inform you that the council has convened. He asked that you join at your convenience." "Thank you," I said, hesitating. "What's your name?" She blinked slightly. Startled. "Sola, my lady." "Just Saris," I corrected softly. "No lady necessary." A small smile curved her lips. "As you wish, Saris. There are clothes in the wardrobe that should fit. If you need anything else, use the bell cord." She gestured toward a braided rope beside the bed, and then withdrew with another slight bow. The wardrobe revealed soft blues and greens, all perfectly sized. I chose a simple sage-colored dress with minimal embellishment, forcing down a few bites of breakfast to steady my nerves before venturing into the corridor. 2 guards immediately snapped to attention. "I'm to meet the king," I said, the title foreign on my tongue. "For a council meeting this way, my lady," the taller guard said, neutral and professional, leading me through a labyrinth of halls. We halted before massive double doors, carved with wolves beneath a full moon. The guard announced my arrival. The doors swung open to reveal a scene fit for a painting. A massive round table dominated the room, 12 figures seated around it. No alphas. Their presence thrummed in the air, electric and sharp, making the hair on my arms rise. At the head, Tavern rose. The gentleman from last night was gone. The Alpha King before the council radiated authority and danger. His black clothes were stark unadorned, except for a silver wolf head pin at his collar. The streak of silver in his hair caught the light as he moved toward me. Every gaze shifted to me. I fought the instinct to shrink, to apologize for simply existing. Saris Tavren said, formal, yet softened by the warmth in his eyes. "Thank you for joining us." He extended his hand. I took it instinctively, letting him guide me to the chair at his right. Across from me, Vera's green eyes glinted like shards of ice in her flawless face. Tavern's hand remained on mine as he addressed the council. "As you know, last night's mating ceremony yielded an unexpected result. The ancient magic recognized Saris as my true mate." Murmurs rippled around the table. An older man with silver hair spoke first, face lined with experience. "Your Majesty, while the ceremony's traditions are respected, we must consider practical matters." His eyes flicked to me, apologetic. "The lady's heritage poses certain challenges." Dark Tavern's tone was casual, but a dangerous edge lingered beneath. Lord Darek shifted uneasily. "An Alpha King's mate traditionally strengthens our bloodlines. She serves as diplomat and warrior both. With all due respect, Lady Saris, human blood does not lessen her worth." Tavern finished unwavering. "The ceremony has seen what none of us could. I trust its wisdom." "Even if you do not," Vera interjected, her honeyed voice, sweet yet cold eyes sharp as blades. "It's about capability." Vera spat her words sharp as knives. "The role of an Alpha King's mate demands traits a half-blood simply cannot possess. No shift, diminished. Strength, shortened lifespan." Her gaze flicked to me, triumph curling her small smile. "You'll grow old, gray, and fragile, while he remains untouched. How is that a true mating?" The words slammed into me like physical blows. I hadn't even considered the lifespan difference. Not yet, not with everything else spinning around me. That was enough. Tavern growled low. Dangerous, the first crack in his composed facade. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. I squeezed his hand, surprised by my own boldness. "No," I said, facing Vera directly. "It's all right. You've made fair points. I can't shift. I'm not as strong as a pureblood. And yes, I will age faster than he will. I drew a steadying breath, letting the truth settle in. But whatever force chose me must have seen something worthier than those limitations. Pretty words, Vera sneered. But they don't change reality. Reality, said another voice, calm and deliberate, is more than bloodlines and brute strength. A woman with warm brown skin and amber eyes studied me thoughtfully. I'm Leora, head of the Eastern Council, and I'm curious what do you bring to this union, Ceres? What makes you worthy to stand beside our king? Her tone was neutral, merely direct. Panic fluttered in my chest. What could I possibly offer to justify my presence here? I don't know if I am worthy. I admitted, honesty raw on my tongue. I never asked for this, but where others see weakness in my human blood, I see perspective. I continued, voice gaining strength. I've lived in both worlds. I understand what it means to be an outsider, to build bridges where others see only walls. My grandmother, Marae's words, echoed in my mind. Your heart sees what others cannot. Perhaps that is what your magic recognized. Leora said, lips curving slightly in approval. This is absurd, Vera, snapped, voice dripping with venom. We're entertaining the ramblings of a half-breed over centuries of tradition and political necessity. The Eastern Alliance can be secured by other means. Tavern's voice cut through her, low and unyielding. Trade agreements, military alliances. My bloodline is not required to maintain your power, Vera. The council requires deliberation, Darek added diplomatically. While the mating ceremony's choice must be respected, there are protocols to consider. Tests of compatibility. Tests. I glanced at Tavern. His expression had darkened further, shadowed with calculation. The old ways are clear, he said finally. My wolf has recognized its mate. There is nothing to deliberate. A harsh voice rose from the far end of the table. A man with a hawk-like face and predatory eyes leaned forward. 3 days as tradition dictates. 3 trials to prove the compatibility of souls. If she succeeds, even I will accept her as our queen. Murmurs spread across the council. Tavern's jaw tightened, but his eyes betrayed the calculation behind every movement. And if I refuse these trials? I asked quietly. The hawk-faced man smiled, cold and devoid of warmth. Then you admit this matching was a mistake. The king may choose a more suitable mate, one unafraid to prove her worth. It was a trap expertly laid. My inadequacy pressed against my chest. These challenges were designed for purebloods, not half-human women who couldn't shift. Yet looking around the table at faces ranging from hostile to curious, I realized the stakes were larger than just me. Tavern's reputation. His authority were on the line because he had honored the ceremony instead of politics. I accept, I said before second thoughts could take hold. Tavern's head whipped toward me, a flash of surprise and something like fear crossing his features. Ceres 3 trials. I continued, meeting the hawk-faced man's gaze without flinching. On one condition, they must be trials any wolf could complete, shifted or not. No tests requiring transformation. The calculating eyes around the table assessed me carefully. Agreed, the hawk-faced man said finally. The first trial begins tomorrow at dawn, the trial of instinct. The council dispersed shortly after leaving Tavern and me, alone in the immense chamber. The moment the doors shut, he spun toward me, eyes flashing. Why did you agree to this? His voice was sharp, predatory, pacing like a wolf circling prey. These trials are set up to break you, he growled. They'll exploit every human limitation you have. What choice did I have? I held my ground, heart hammering, unshaken by the intensity radiating off him. If you refused, you'd confirm every suspicion they already hold about your worth. Yet you've upended your entire political structure for me, a stranger, I shot back. The least I can do is attempt to justify that decision. Tavern paused mid-stride, expression softening, almost imperceptibly. You owe me nothing. Ceres, he murmured. The ceremony chose me for reasons beyond politics. Help me understand them, I said quietly, forcing my voice to remain steady. Because right now all I see is chaos, I admitted. Chaos I caused by falling asleep at the wrong place, wrong time. Tavern closed the distance between us in 2 long strides, hands lifting to frame my face with unexpected tenderness. There is no wrong place or time for finding one's mate. But if you insist on facing these trials, I will prepare you whatever advantage I can offer within the rules. A knock shattered the moment. Sola entered, expression grim. Your Majesty, there's been an incident on the eastern border. The delegation from Lady Veyra's territory is demanding audience. Tavern's hands fell from my face, his expression hardening. Of course they are, he said, turning to me. Forgive me. This requires immediate attention. Orin will escort you back to your chambers. I'll join you as soon as possible. The weight of his absence pressed on me, hollow and real, as Orin guided me through the labyrinthine corridors. He's never looked at anyone the way he looks at you, Orin said suddenly. I blinked, startled. You've known him long. 2 centuries, give or take, Orin said with the barest smile softening his scarred features. He was different once. Before the crown, before the politics. You remind him of that time. Before I could ask more, we arrived at my door. Orin bowed and left, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the looming shadow of the trial of instinct. Touching my grandmother Marae's pendant, I recalled her final words. When the moment comes to choose between safety and truth, choose truth. The harder path is the only one worth walking. Tomorrow I would walk it. Dawn arrived, swiftly cruel in its brightness. I had spent the night tossing in sheets, too soft-minded, racing through every possibility for the trial. Tavern never appeared. Whatever crisis Veyra's delegation had provoked must have demanded his attention. Sola arrived just as pale light spilled through my window's expression, carefully neutral. It's time, my lady. The council awaits in the western courtyard. She helped me into unfamiliar clothes, fitted leather pants, a simple deep blue tunic, boots built for movement rather than appearance. Strange comfort settled over me. The outfit allowed freedom I wasn't used to. Do you know what this trial entails? I asked, her hands pausing mid-braid as she worked my hair. It's not my place to say, she replied softly. Anything might help, I whispered. Her amber eyes met mine in the mirror, conflict visible there. The trial of instinct tests your connection to your inner wolf, your ability to sense danger, to trust what cannot be seen or heard. She tied the braid's end with a leather cord, a wolf I did not yet possess. Fantastic. The western courtyard was wild, more meadow than manicured garden, bordered by dense forest. Council members formed a loose semicircle, expressions ranging from hostility to careful scrutiny. Tavern stood apart, haggard, but alert, his gaze finding mine. He began to approach, but Darek's hand on his arm and a murmured word held him back. Jaw clenched, Tavern remained where he was. No help would come from him. Whatever this trial demanded, I would face it alone. The hawk-faced man, Aldrich, stepped forward. The trial of instinct sounded simple on paper, impossible in practice. Somewhere in the forest lay a single white stone etched with the royal crest. I had until midday to retrieve it and return here to the courtyard. I frowned. That's it, just a stone. Tavern's smile was all predator. The forest is vast, the stone small, and you will not be alone. His gesture summoned the guards, and 3 massive wolves appeared on heavy chains. Real wolves, not shifters in wolf form. Their silver-gray coats rippled with muscle eyes gleaming with intelligence, far beyond ordinary canines. These are my sentinels, Tavern said, trained to defend the borders of my territory from any intruder. Today, they guard the stone. My blood turned to ice. You expect me to outrun wolves, I thought. We agreed no trials requiring transformation. You need not outrun them, Zarek replied. voice even, but sharp. His gaze flicked meaningfully to Tavrin. Convince them you belong. A true mate carries the Alpha King's scent, his essence. If your bond is genuine, the wolves will recognize it. I swallowed hard, pulse hammering. This is absurd, I muttered, stepping forward despite Darek's restraining hand. The sentinels attack anything without my direct command, Vera said sweetly. Then command them. If you believe in this match, order them to let her pass. Tavrin's expression darkened. That is not how the trial works. Commands are given before it begins, not tailored to the participant. Precisely, Zarek added. The standard command is clear. Protect the stone from all who approach. If your mate truly carries the Alpha's essence, they will sense it and yield. If not, well, our healers are excellent. A wave of nausea rolled through me. This was no test, it was a death sentence. Leora stepped forward, amber eyes concerned. This goes too far, Zarek. The girl can't even shift if threatened. The rules were agreed upon, he countered. No trials requiring transformation. This is different. It tests the connection that supposedly exists between them. He turned his piercing gaze on me. Unless you wish to withdraw. There it was, the trap snapping shut. Withdraw and prove myself unworthy. Continue and risk being torn apart. I looked to Tavrin. His eyes glowed feral, his body vibrating with restrained fury. And beneath that, I saw something else. Fear. For me, my fingers closed around my grandmother Murray's pendant, its familiar curves grounding me. Your heart sees what others cannot. I accept the trial, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Tavrin crossed to me in a few swift strides, hands framing my face with surprising gentleness. His touch carried fury and fire, yet tenderness at the same time. Listen to me, he said, voice low, urgent. The wolves respond to fear. Show none. Even if you must lie to your own body, move slowly. Make no sudden gestures. If they approach, stop completely, and lower your eyes not in submission, but as an equal acknowledging their territory. His thumbs brushed my cheeks, and I realized they were wet. I hadn't even known I was crying. Trust your instincts, he whispered. Whatever human blood runs in your veins, you are still wolf enough for this. Before I could reply, his lips pressed to my forehead, a gesture so tender it stole my breath. Then he stepped back, regaining the composed regal mask he wore for the world. If she is harmed, there will be consequences, he told Zarek. The threat hung in the air, absolute and cold. Even Zarek seemed to pale slightly. The wolves were released into the forest first, given a head start to position themselves. Then it was my turn. I glanced once at Tavrin before stepping into the trees. The forest swallowed me, whole branches arching overhead, blotting out the morning light. My human eyes struggled in the dimness. My heightened senses strained for any sign of danger. Each step was deliberate, silent, measured, as though the forest itself waited to see if I would survive. The forest floor was soft with decades of fallen leaves, cushioning each step and making quiet movement slightly easier. But which way should I go? The courtyard's edge stretched for at least half a mile in either direction. The stone could be anywhere. Trust your instincts, Tavrin had said. But what instincts? I had no wolf to guide me, no preternatural connection to the wild. Or did I? I closed my eyes, shutting out sight and sound, focusing instead on feeling. The subtle currents of air brushing my skin, the faint vibration of earth beneath my feet, the quiet hum of life surrounding me. Something tugged at my awareness, not a sound, not a sight, but a pull, a sense of rightness. Without questioning it, I followed, stepping deeper into the forest. Time became fluid. Every sense sharpened, alert for any hint of the sentinel wolves. Twice I froze at rustling nearby, pressing myself against a tree until the forest's rhythm returned to normal. The pull grew stronger as I neared a small clearing, sunlight dappling the ground. In its center, Atop a rock formation gleamed the white stone, its surface marked with the royal crest. Too easy, I thought. Too clean, almost mocking in its simplicity. I scanned for the wolves. Nothing moved, but instinct screamed of hidden eyes, patient and waiting. The sentinels were here, concealed, but present. Remembering Tavern's words, I moved slowly, deliberately. No sudden gestures. Step by careful step, I approached the rock. A low growl froze me. From behind the formation, one of the sentinels emerged. Silver fur rippled and dappled, light teeth bared. It was enormous shoulders at my waist, eyes fixed on me with predatory intelligence. My heart pounded, but I forced my breathing steady. Show no fear, Tavern had instructed. I stopped, lowered my eyes slightly, not in submission, but as an equal acknowledging territory. The growl continued, but the wolf did not attack. After what felt like eternity, I risked a glance upward. The wolf had moved closer, close enough that I could feel its hot breath. It was sensing me, testing whether I was friend or foe, testing whether I carried Tavern's essence. Could I? We'd barely touched, only that fleeting moment in his chambers. The growl deepened. Muscles tensed. Instinctively, I clutched my grandmother Murray's pendant. Your heart sees what others cannot. Warmth spread from my palm up my arm, throughout my body. The wolf tilted its head, confused. I whispered, I mean no harm. I'm here for the stone, that's all. To my astonishment, it sat back on its haunches, still wary, but no longer threatening. Step by careful step, I approached the rock. The white stone lay in plain view, small enough to fit in my hand, etched with the same royal crest as Tavern's pin. As I grasped it, movement at the clearing's edge drew my attention. 2 more sentinels emerged, forming a loose semicircle, blocking my path back. I clutched the stone tighter, its surface warming strangely against my skin. I have what I came for, I said aloud, ridiculous as it felt. None moved, attacking or yielding. They simply watched, eyes fixed and unnerving. If the wolves truly responded to Tavern's essence, perhaps the stone itself could serve as proof. I held it forward, palm open, displaying the crest. See, I bear your master's mark. Let me pass. For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, as if wordless understanding passed between them, the wolves stepped aside, forming a narrow path. I moved cautiously, stone extended like a talisman, step by careful step. Eyes tracking every motion I passed between them. Only once I was deep in the trees did instinct allow me to quicken my pace, moving swiftly toward the courtyard. The return journey, which had taken hours inward, seemed to pass in minutes. Sunlight spilled ahead, and the courtyard appeared just beyond the forest's edge. I emerged, stone clutched tight, to find the council staring in varying degrees of shock. He was exactly where I'd left him, though the rigid set of his shoulders suggested the effort it had taken to remain still. His eyes found mine, and relief washed over his features, so raw it made my chest tighten. I walked straight to him, ignoring the council's murmurs, and held out the stone. I believe this belongs to you, I said, trying for lightness, despite trembling limbs. Tavern took it, his fingers brushing mine deliberately. How he asked quietly meant for my ears alone. Before I could answer, slow applause rippled through the courtyard. Leora stepped forward, amber eyes warm with genuine respect. Well done, she said. Few have completed the trial of instinct so efficiently. Even Zarek, hawkish and unsmiling, looked unconvinced. The sentinels let you pass. Why, he demanded, narrowing his eyes. I met his gaze steadily. Perhaps they recognized what you cannot. Perhaps the ceremony made no mistake. Or perhaps other forces are at work. His eyes flicked to my pendant. The second trial will reveal more, the trial of strength at dawn tomorrow. Rest now, half-blood. You'll need your instincts. As the council dispersed, Tavern placed his hand at the small of my back, guiding me toward the palace. The moment we were inside, away from prying eyes, he pulled me into a shadowed alcove, hands cupping my face as if searching for injury. "Are you hurt?" His voice was rough with concern. "I'm fine," I assured him, frightened half to death but unharmed. Relief softened his features. "How did you do it?" "The sentinels never yield to outsiders. I touched the pendant. I just felt my way through. Trusted what I couldn't see or understand." His gaze dropped to the silver crescent and star. "That pendant. There's more to it than you know, isn't there?" Before I could answer, Orin appeared at the corridor's end. "Your Majesty, forgive the interruption. The Eastern delegation has returned with new demands." Tavern's expression hardened, though his thumb traced a gentle path along my cheek before he stepped back. "We'll continue this later. Go rest, Ceres. The trial of strength will demand even more from you." As he walked away, the weight of accomplishment and the looming challenge settled over me. One trial down, 2 to go, and I suspected the hardest were yet to come. Sleep finally claimed me, exhaustion pulling me under. Yet my dreams were haunted by silver wolves, eyes knowing and a pendant glowing in their light. I woke before dawn, Marae's voice echoing in my mind. "Your heart sees what others cannot." What had she known that I didn't? I sat up, reaching for the pendant, never leaving my neck. In the dim pre-dawn light, it appeared ordinary, a simple silver crescent cradling a tiny star. Yet in the forest I could have sworn it had warmed to my need. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Expecting Sola, I found Tavern instead, tall frame filling the doorway. Dark shadows under his eyes betrayed another sleepless night, yet his gaze was sharp as it swept over me. "May I come in?" His tone was unusually formal. I nodded, suddenly aware of my sleep-tangled appearance. He entered, closing the door quietly behind him. "I wanted to see you before the trial." He remained near the door, keeping a careful distance. "The trial of strength is not what it seems." "What does that mean?" I asked, hugging my knees. "Strength to our kind isn't merely physical. It's the capacity to endure, to protect what matters most." His eyes held mine, unblinking, intense. "They will test your limits today, Ceres," he said, and a chill ran down my spine. "How? I don't know the specifics." "The trials are crafted individually for each candidate." His jaw tightened. "But Zarek showed suspicious interest in your pendant yesterday. I believe he suspects external magic at work," Tavern continued. "I touched the silver crescent. It had been Marae's given to me before she died. Your grandmother—" His gaze sharpened. "Just a human woman as far as I knew. My mother's mother." I frowned, thinking back. Marae always seemed to know things about people, sometimes even about the future. I'd assumed she was simply observant. Tavern sat at the edge of the bed, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. "May I?" His fingers hovered near my pendant. I nodded, holding still as he lifted it gently, examining it in his palm without removing it from my neck. The touch sent a whisper of awareness across my skin. "This is old magic," he murmured, echoing the words from our first night. "Older than the oldest werewolf bloodlines. Protective magic meant to shield the wearer from harm." His eyes lifted to mine. "But such protection comes at a cost. Always." "What cost?" I whispered. "That depends on who crafted it. And why." He released the pendant, fingers brushing the hollow of my throat. "Your grandmother may have been more than she appeared." The thought thrilled and unsettled me simultaneously. Had she known this moment would come? Had she prepared me in ways I hadn't realized? "Whatever strength the pendant gives you," Tavern continued, "Drake will try to separate you from it today. He'll call it evening, the playing field, ensuring no external magic influences the trial." My fingers closed protectively around the silver crescent. "I can't take it off," I promised her. Approval flickered in his eyes. "Good. Stand firm on that." As your potential mate, I can invoke the right of personal tokens. One item of significance is allowed during trials. They cannot force you to remove it without breaking ancient laws of courtship. Personal tokens. Potential mate. The words sent a flutter through my chest, unrelated to fear. Since the mating ceremony, we'd been swept along by politics and trials, with barely a moment to consider what being mates might mean. Tavrin, I said, softly. Why are you doing this? Standing against your council, risking political alliances. All for someone you don't even know. He was silent, unreadable, for a long moment. Then with deliberate care he took my hand. 200 years is a long time to rule alone, he said finally, low and rough around the edges. To make every decision based on political advantage rather than personal desire. To be surrounded by people who want your power, your bloodline, but never simply you. His thumb traced circles on my palm. When I felt that pull during the ceremony, it wasn't just magic. It was recognition of something I'd been missing without realizing it. The raw honesty left me breathless. This wasn't the diplomatic king speaking, it was the man beneath the crown. I'm still not sure I'm what you need, I admitted. Half human, unable to shift. Vera had been right about one thing. I'd age and die while he remained. What kind of mate is that? He asked. One I choose freely. Knowing all it entails, he replied, grip tightening on my hand. But none of that matters if you don't want this series. The ceremony reveals compatibility, not destiny. You can still walk away. The offer hung between us, startling in its simplicity. I could leave, return to my tiny apartment, my quiet job, shelving books at the university, my half-life on the margins of both worlds. No more trials, no more politics, no more danger, no more Tavrin. With ice-blue eyes that somehow warmed when they looked at me. No more feeling like I finally belonged to someone. I surprised myself with the certainty in my voice. I'm not walking away, not until these trials are complete. Then we'll decide together what comes next. Something like hope flickered in his gaze. He lifted my hand, pressing his lips to my knuckles, a gesture both courtly and intimate. Then a sharp knock interrupted us. Sola entered, stopping short at the sight of Tavrin sitting on my bed. Forgive me, Your Majesty, she stammered. The council is gathering for the second trial. Tavrin stood, his regal mask sliding back into place. We'll be there shortly. When she left, he turned back to me. Remember what I said. Whatever happens, don't surrender your pendant. And Ceres. His expression softened briefly. Trust yourself as I do. With that, he was gone, leaving me alone to prepare for the next ordeal. The trial of strength would take place in the great hall rather than outdoors. The room transformed from its usual grandeur into something more primal. The long tables had been cleared, leaving a vast open space in the center. At one end, a simple stone pedestal held an ornate silver chalice. The council members lined the walls, their expressions a spectrum. Leora's cautious optimism. Zarek's barely contained anticipation. Vera stood apart, triumph curving her perfect mouth in a way that sent warning pulses through my body. Whatever this trial entailed, she believed it would break me. Tavrin took his place on a raised dais. Expression impassive. Zarek stepped forward to address me. The trial of strength, he announced. To test your capacity to endure what must be borne for the pack, for the bond of mates. His cold eyes fixed on me, approached the chalice half-blood. I moved, conscious of every eye tracking my progress. The chalice appeared ordinary enough, polished silver, etched with a crest resembling the one on yesterday's white stone. Drink, Zarek commanded. I peered into the cup. A clear liquid, half full, odorless to my enhanced senses. What is it? I asked. That is part of the trial, he replied with a thin, knowing smile. To trust, or not to trust. To endure, or flee. I glanced at Tavrin. His neutral expression offered no guidance. This was mine to face. Before drinking, I invoked the rite of personal tokens. Formal words falling awkwardly from my lips. My pendant remains with me through this trial. Zarek's expression soured. You've been coached, I see, he said. She has invoked her right, Leora interjected. The pendant stays Zarek. With a curt nod, he gestured to the chalice again. Drink. Let us see what strength you possess. I lifted the cup, whispering a silent prayer to whatever powers Marai might have believed in. The liquid slid down my throat, tasteless like water. For a moment, nothing happened. Then agony exploded through every nerve, folding me to my knees as the chalice clattered to the stone floor. Fire raced through my veins, stealing breath and vision. Dimly I heard voices, Tavern shouting, others restraining him. Zarek's cold pronouncement. The trial has begun. None may interfere. The pain vanished as suddenly as it had come, leaving me gasping on the floor. When sight returned, I was no longer in the great hall but in a misty clearing unfamiliar. No, this wasn't a forest. It had no scent, no substance. An illusion created by whatever potion I had drunk. Hello, little wolf, that isn't a voice purred. I spun to see Vera, ethereal and unsettling in this dreamlike space. Something was wrong. Her eyes were pitch black, lacking whites or irises. What is this? Where am I? I demanded. Inside, she replied cryptically, circling me like a predator. Inside your mind, your fears. The potion merely opens the door. What you find here was already waiting. Her smile, not quite Vera, widened. The trial of strength tests your ability to face what you fear most, to endure what cannot be changed. And what might that be? I fought to keep my voice steady. Her form shifted, rippling like liquid, until she stood before me, a mirror image of myself. But stronger, wilder eyes glowing wolf gold. Me, she said. The wolf you should have been. The mate he deserves. I stepped back, unsettled by this perfect version of myself. You're not real. I am what you could have been without your human weakness. She moved with liquid grace, power in every line. I am what the Alpha King needs. Strength to match his own. Not a half-breed who can't even answer the moon's call. Each word struck like a physical blow, giving voice to my deepest insecurities. The council is right to test you, she continued. Her shape shifted again, and suddenly it was Tavern standing before me. But not my Tavern. This version was cold, distant. Eyes like frozen steel, his voice sharp enough to cut through bone. How could you ever stand beside me as an equal? How could you ever rule as queen? Among creatures you barely understand. I knew it wasn't really him. Yet seeing Tavern's face twisted with such disdain still made my chest ache. This isn't real. I whispered more to myself than to the apparition. Isn't it the false Tavern? Asked, stepping closer, his voice low and cruel. You know these doubts already live inside you, Ceres. The fear that you'll never be enough, that the ceremony made a mistake, that one day I'll wake and realize what a terrible error I've made. My legs trembled, weakness spreading like poison through my veins. Whatever was in that potion was feeding off my doubt. You'll age and die while I remain unchanged, he said, voice echoing around the illusion. Decades for you will pass in a blink for me. What kind of mate is that? What kind of queen? I dropped to my knees. The words cut deeper than claws could. My hand found my pendant, clutching it so tightly, the edges bit into my palm. The false Tavern sneered. That trinket can't save you from the truth. Surrender, Ceres. Admit you don't belong here. Admit you don't belong with me. It would be kinder for us both. Kinder. That word jarred something inside me. The real Tavern had never spoken of kindness when it came to us. Only choice, only truth. He'd never pitied me. He'd seen me. The pendant grew warm beneath my hand, pulsing faintly. and suddenly clarity pierced the fog of pain. This wasn't about physical strength. It was about conviction, about believing I was worthy of standing beside him, not because of power or blood, but because of choice. I forced myself upright, my body still shaking but my voice steady. "You're right about one thing," I said to the apparition. "I'm not a wolf. I can't shift. I'll never hunt beneath the moon or live for centuries." The false tavern's cruel smile deepened. "But that's not why the ceremony chose me," I continued, voice gaining strength. "It chose me because what he needs isn't another wolf, another soldier, or another pawn. He needs something no one else has ever offered him: perspective, compassion, and a bridge between worlds." The apparition faltered its expression, twisting. "Pretty lies to comfort yourself." "No," I said, stepping forward. "Truth." Moray's voice whispered through me. "Your heart sees what others cannot. My strength isn't in claws or immortality. It's in seeing him, not the Alpha King, not the legend, but Tavern, the man who's carried the weight of an entire realm for 200 years, always choosing duty over desire." The mist around us began to thin light, piercing through the illusion. The false Tavern's edges blurred his body, flickering like smoke. "I may not live forever," I said, "but I can give him what your perfect wolves never could: the courage to choose for himself, to choose happiness." The apparition's fading voice whispered, "He'll regret it when you're old and gray. Then that will be his choice too," I said quietly. "And he's strong enough to bear it, just like I am." The illusion shattered, mist dissolving into light. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the great hall, still on my knees, but fully aware. The council's silence was heavy as stone, their gazes caught between shock and reluctant respect. And Tavren, the real Tavren, descended from the dais, his eyes burning with something raw and unguarded, something that felt like both pride and awe. Ignoring protocol, I stayed on my knees. "Are you all right?" Tavern asked quietly, hand brushing a loose strand of hair from my face with surprising gentleness. "I think so," I managed, though my body still trembled from the potion's after effects. Did I pass?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Look around, Ceres." I followed his gaze. Every council member's head was slightly bowed in respect, even Zarek's. A gesture I had only ever seen directed at Tavern himself. The trial of strength. Leora announced, amber eyes, warm is complete. The candidate has endured. Tavern helped me to my feet, arms steadying me as my legs threatened to give out again. "The final trial," he said to the council voice, brooking no argument, "will be held tomorrow. For now, my mate requires rest." My mate. The word sent a shiver of something beyond fear through me. As Tavern led me from the hall, I glimpsed Vera's face. No longer triumphant, but calculating, reassessing the battlefield with subtle cunning. Whatever the final trial brought, I knew she would manipulate it to be as difficult as possible. Morning dawned, cold and clear, pale winter sunlight filtering through the windows without warmth. I stood at the balcony, watching my breath fog the glass mind, racing through the possibilities for the final test, the trial of heart. Nora had named it the previous evening, the most important and potentially devastating test. A soft knock announced Sola's arrival, bringing breakfast and news. "The trial has been moved," she said, setting down a tray, far too generous for my appetite, "to the council chamber instead of the great hall. And it will be private, only council members allowed." She hesitated. "People are saying Lady Vera requested the change." Of course she had. After my success in the first 2 trials, Vera would want to control every variable. A private chamber meant fewer witnesses if something went wrong, or if rules were bent. "Thank you for telling me, Sola," I said, picking at a piece of bread. My stomach nodded reluctantly, but not for real hunger. "Has there been any word from the king this morning?" I asked. Her expression softened. He's been in meetings since before dawn. The Eastern delegation grows insistent. Serena's family is applying political pressure, perhaps threatening to withhold support or resources if their daughter isn't chosen as mate. I wondered briefly what would happen if I failed this trial. Would Tavern then be free to choose Vera? Would that serve his kingdom better? The thought stabbed unexpectedly at my chest. I dressed carefully in the gown Sola had laid out, a deep forest green that somehow made my eyes appear more gold than brown. My pendant rested cool against my skin, a familiar comfort before I followed a stone-faced guard to the council chamber. Unlike the great hall, this chamber was intimate, almost claustrophobic. High windows let in light, but no view beyond. The round table from my first council meeting dominated one side of the room, now pushed aside to create an open space in the center. The council members stood in a loose semicircle, expressions grave. Tavern was absent, as was Vera. "Where is the king?" I asked, unable to keep worry from my voice. "The Alpha King is not permitted to witness this trial," Zarek answered, stepping forward. "The trial of heart tests connections that must stand independent of physical presence." Before I could respond, the door behind me opened. Vera entered, white blonde hair cascading around her shoulders, gown shimmering like liquid silver in the winter light. Ethereal, untouchable, utterly determined. The final trial, Zarek announced, tests the depth of connection between potential mates. The bond to be tested wasn't just between two people, it was between two bloodlines, two destinies. Zarek gestured toward the center of the chamber. "Both candidates will participate." Both. I turned toward Vera, confusion knotting my chest. Her lips curved into a cold, confident smile. "But there's only one candidate," I said, voice rising. "Me." "A technicality," Zarek replied with a dismissive wave. Lady Vera was the council's first choice before the ceremony's unexpected result. It is only fair she be allowed to demonstrate her connection with the Alpha King. Fair. The word felt poisoned. From everything Tavern had told me, the mating ceremony's choice was sacred, not to be questioned or altered. Yet here Zarek stood, rewriting the rules to serve his own ambition. "The king wouldn't approve this," I said, turning toward Leora for support. Her golden eyes shimmered with regret. "The king has no authority over the trial's conduct," she said quietly, "only in the final choice if a candidate fails. It has always been that way." Vera's smile deepened. "Afraid of fair competition, half-blood." Fair was the last word that fit this moment, but I knew the trap. If I refused, I'd fail automatically. And if I accepted, I'd face a test built for a pure-blood wolf with centuries of control. "What is the trial exactly?" I asked, buying a moment to think. Zarek pointed toward two identical silver bowls resting on pedestals opposite each other. "The bowls of reflection," he explained. "Water drawn from the sacred spring beneath the palace. It reveals truth. Each candidate will place a drop of their blood in their bowl. If a true mate bond exists, the water will respond, unmistakably." Vera glided to her bowl movements, elegant, calculated. "I've known Tavern for over a century," she said, voice echoing just enough for every council member to hear. "Our families have stood together longer than this girl has drawn breath. What could she offer that compares to legacy?" The challenge was venomous. But something about her performance felt rehearsed, like a story she needed the council to believe. If her bond with Tavern was so strong, why hadn't the sacred ceremony recognized it? I approached the second bowl. The water was clear, still, ordinary. Zarek produced a slim silver dagger. One drop from each candidate, freely given. He offered it to Vera first. She didn't hesitate. The blade pricked her finger and a single drop of crimson fell into her bowl. Nothing happened. Her confident posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. Then Zarek handed the dagger to me. Its weight felt heavier than it should. "Be careful," Saris Leora whispered. "Blood magic unveils truths deeper than thought. Are you ready for what it might show?" Was I Every trial so far had stripped me bare body, mind, and soul. Did I really want to know if fate had bound me to a man I barely understood? The pendant at my throat warmed as if answering my doubt. I thought of Tavern, not the Alpha King, cloaked in power, but the man who had looked at me beneath the moonlight with quiet wonder. The man who had let me choose whether to stay or walk away. I pricked my finger and let a drop fall into the bowl. For a moment, nothing. Then the water shimmered, glowing softly, swirling, even though the air was still. The light grew brighter, painting the walls in shifting silver and shadow. Gasps broke the silence as mist rose from the surface, twisting into two figures, a wolf running beneath a full moon and a woman reaching out to it. They circled each other endlessly, bound in rhythm and balance. Even Zarek's breath caught. "Impossible," he whispered. I turned toward Veyra's bowl, still lifeless, unchanged. The color drained from her face, her poise cracked at the edges. "What does it mean?" I asked, unable to look away from the shimmering vision above me. "It means," came a deep resonant voice from the doorway, "that the ceremony was right." Tavern stood there, tall, commanding eyes blazing with fury. "You overstepped, old friend," he said to Zarek, his tone like thunder rolling through stone. "The trials are sacred. To twist them for politics is sacrilege." Zarek straightened, pride flaring. "The council must ensure the Alpha King's strongest possible match. Lady Veyra's lineage has nothing." Tavern cut in sharply, stepping closer, gaze fixed on the silver light still rising from my bowl. "Bloodline means nothing to the bond of the soul." The magic had spoken twice now. Only a fool would continue to question it. Tavern stepped closer, and the shapes above my bowl responded. The wolf grew larger, more defined, circling the human figure with urgent motion. As Tavern appeared beside me, the glow of the water intensified until it was almost blinding. "This is the true reflection," Leora murmured, awe in her voice. "The rarest response the sacred water can give, unseen in generations." Tavern's hand found mine, fingers entwining with mine, in a gesture that was both protective and possessive. "The trial of heart is complete," he announced. "By ancient law and magic's decree, I claim Ceres as my true mate." Veyra's composure shattered, desperation replacing shock on her perfect face. "You can't do this. Our families have agreements. A century of alliance hangs in the balance. Your family's alliance was never dependent on a mating." Tavern replied evenly but firmly. "And if it was then, it wasn't truly an alliance at all. Was it?" Color flooded her cheeks. "You'll regret this. When she ages and dies while you remain unchanged, you'll remember this and wish you'd chosen differently." A dangerous edge flashed in Tavern's ice-blue eyes. "Be careful, Veyra," he said, calm but lethal. "You speak of my mate now. Not a political inconvenience." She recoiled as if struck, then draped herself in dignity like armor. "My father will hear of this," she hissed, sweeping from the room. Her departure left a charged silence. Zarek cleared his throat. "The trials are complete," he said reluctantly. "The council recognizes Ceres as the Alpha King's chosen mate." One by one, heads bowed, some reluctantly, some like Leora with genuine pleasure. The members filed out, leaving Tavern and me alone with the water still glowing softly. "You shouldn't have been here," I said once the door closed. Zarek answered dryly. "The king isn't permitted to witness this trial. Technically, you didn't witness it yourself, only the conclusion." Tavern's expression softened. "Dominic had told me of Zarek's last-minute changes. I couldn't let you face that alone. I would have managed," I said, surprised at the conviction in my own voice. "I know." His gaze held mine, admiration clear. "But you shouldn't have had to, not anymore." The glow of the water began to fade, the mystical shapes dissipating like morning mist. Tavern's fingers brushed my pendant lightly. "Your grandmother's gift protected you through all 3 trials," he said softly. "I think she may have known more than she revealed about what I asked." About you. About us, perhaps. His hand cut a faint line across my cheek. The thought spun me dizzy. My grandmother, ordinary and human, might have foreseen this moment. The pendant had been her way of ensuring I survived to reach it. What happens now? I asked, leaning slightly into his touch. Now, he said, a warm, wicked gleam in his eyes, we formalize what the ceremony and trials have confirmed, if that's what you want. Despite everything, despite the magic's undeniable verdict, he was offering me choice. My heart swelled. If I said no, pain flashed across his features, quick, subtle, unmistakable. Then you would walk away, he said, free to return to your life. I would respect your decision, though it wouldn't be my preference. The trial of heart had revealed more than mystical compatibility. It had shown me what I already felt. My human heart had begun to care for this man, who looked at me as if I were precious, not lacking. And what would be your preference? I asked, stepping closer until I could feel the heat radiating from him. The faint silver ring around his ice-blue irises. His control, fraying voice dropping to a register that made my spine tingle. That you stay, he said. That you accept this bond. That you become not just my mate, but my queen, bridging the worlds we both inhabit. I thought of my quiet life before the safety of routines, the comfort of invisibility. And then the past 3 days, fear, exhilaration, discovery, connection, finally belonging. My hand rose to cover his, still resting against my cheek. I stay, I said simply. The words barely left my lips before his mouth claimed mine. The kiss began gentle, then flared desperate, as if he had been holding back since the night I woke in his arms 3 nights ago. When we finally parted, both breathless, his forehead rested against mine. There will still be challenges, he warned. The council will accept our mating because they must, but some, like Zarek, will keep looking for ways to undermine you. And Serena's family? I asked. One challenge at a time, I said, smiling up at him. Starting with the most pressing, getting to know the man I'm apparently destined to spend my life with. The rest we face together, however much time we have. Something like peace softened his features, perhaps the first true peace in centuries of duty and politics. Together, he agreed, lips finding mine again. My pendant warmed, not with protective magic this time, but with the radiance of a promise fulfilled. Your heart sees what others cannot. Marae's words whispered through me, and now I understood fully.